Episode 1. Truck Kun strikes again when it runs over a middle-aged man and others. Unfortunately for the man in his mid-30s, he ends up losing his life. Yet the only thing he regrets is dying with his virginity. The next time he opens his eyes, he gets an awesome view of a pair of voluminous and scrumptious tits facing him. He also receives kisses from a young man, which he doesn't find appropriate. With time, he figures out that his weird perspective of the room is because he has been reincarnated as a newborn baby. The baby is named Rudius by the man and woman, who are revealed to be his loving parents, Paul and Zenith. Reincarnation is something Rudius never thought was possible. Now, he faces the reality of being born by a young couple in their 20s. As time goes by, Rudius's infancy is like no other. He's not just a fast learner, but he also understands the new world's language within 6 months of his birth. Having a mind of a 30-year-old stuck in a baby's body becomes a nuisance when it is revealed that Rudius was a perverted virgin in his former life. As he grows over the years, maid Lilia becomes suspicious of him, even when all he does is lock himself up and study magic books. It turns out that the world Rudius is reborn in is one where sword and magic practices exist. After spending months improving his mana, Rudius attempts an incantation spell, and the severity of the blast deals massive damage to the house. Seeing Rudius's ability to practice intermediate magic at such a young age, his mother suggests they hire a magic tutor for him, even though his father wants him to learn swordplay. Afterward, Roxy arrives at their residence as Rudius's new tutor, but instead, all Rudius can think of is how to make the lolicon his wife. While they train together, Roxy realizes that Rudius is a child genius with just one incomplete spell he casts. And who doesn't love a challenge from a student? To celebrate Roxy's arrival, a feast is thrown on her behalf. In the end, Rudius promises to live his second life to the fullest, rather than being the jobless bum from his former life. Episode 2. While Rudius continues his magic lessons, he makes discoveries about his abilities, especially his ability to peep at Roxy, who pleasures herself while his parents are loud during their nighttime acts. One evening, during Rudius's lecture, Roxy informs her student that demons and monsters exist in this world. As a matter of fact, Roxy reveals that she's from a demon race herself, which explains why her hair color is purple. Before she ends her story, she warns Rudius to stay away from any demon breed with green hair and a jewel on their forehead. This breed of demons is known as superds. She also adds that superheroes are known to be very dangerous. After more than a year of training, Rudius is oriented toward magic that doesn't exhaust his mana. One day, Roxy tells him about a university in Red Mountain Hill that trains mages. She describes Renoa University as the best school of magic and also recommends it to him. In time, Rudius celebrates his 5th birthday. It's also his graduation under Roxy's tutelage. To do that, Rudius has to do something he was always afraid of in his former life. He has to leave his comfort zone, which is crossing the boundaries of his home. Despite his initial fear, riding with Roxy and not being mocked by villagers like he was in his former life eases his worry. They arrive at an open field where they can freely cast magic without interference. The final class ends successfully for young Rudius, because for every heavy-duty spell Roxy cast, the little champ did even better. Afterward, Roxy declares him a saint-level water mage, as well as in other elements, and heads back to her home. Episode 3. For Rudius, going out with Roxy boosted his confidence so much that the boy now enjoys playing outdoors. On his way one day, he meets some kids bullying another helpless kid. He intervenes to stop the act since he knows what he experienced from being bullied in his former life. He washes the kid with his water magic, but then again, he notices the kid's hair is green and worries that he might have bumped into a superb demon that Roxy warned him about. Luckily, there's no jewel on the kid's forehead, and Rudius renders him safe. After spending the whole day together with his new friend, Sylph, Rudius returns home to meet his angry father. Paul doesn't give Rudius a chance to speak before hitting him. Apparently, the other kids reported the issue to Paul, but did not include the part where they bullied a child. Although, after finding out the truth, Paul expresses his regret. Months later, Rudius and his new friend get so close that they return to Rudius's home when it rains one day. Eager to take a hot bath after being drenched, Rudius strips Sylph against his will and makes a shocking discovery. It turns out that all along, Sylph had been a girl, and her real name is Sylphiette. This event traumatizes Sylphiette so much that she avoids Rudius until he finally apologizes and they settle. Episode 4. With time, Zenith's pregnancy is joyfully announced to the household. It turns out that all the nighttime acts finally paid off. Not only that, there's a major scandal in the household when maid Lilia also reveals that she's pregnant. There's no other logical explanation. Everyone who hears this news immediately knows that Paul is responsible for getting the maid pregnant. One woman wasn't enough for him, I guess. Zenith is broken at this news while she talks about a solution, one-on-one with Lilia. They conclude that Lilia will go home after childbirth. However, the journey will take a month, and the probability that she and the child will survive in such brutal weather is minimal. Thanks to Rudius, who convinces his mother by blaming Paul, Lilia's stay as family is confirmed. Yet deep within her, Lilia is aware that she seduced Paul after having a pent-up desire to hear the couple, who can't keep their voices down. I didn't see that coming. After Rudius saves her, Lilia admits she was wrong about him all along. Meanwhile, it was unknown to her that it was Rudius's way of thanking her for not exposing Roxy's underwear she found in his things. Months later, beautiful baby girls Norn and Aisha are welcomed into the household, just in time for Rudius to begin school. Eager to get a job and support Sylphiette's tuition fees, Rudius finds himself stuck with a family friend and his parents' former accomplice, Ghislaine. Episode 5. In a letter given to Rudius, his father addresses the issue of leaving Sylphiette alone. Paul thinks the girl is going to weigh Rudius down because of how close they are. In the end, he advises his son to work hard and learn to live independently. Arriving in the capital city, Rudius meets up with Philip, his new employer. His job is to educate Philip's daughter, Eris, for 5 years, and in exchange, Philip pays for his tuition at the University of Magic. Meeting Eris for the first time gets intense, really intense, and violent. The girl is older than him, and because of that, she underestimates his potential. Philip reveals that Eris has been a troublesome child to her past tutors, and the real task comes with taming a child similar to a wild beast. To urge Eris into using her powers, Rudius suggests to Philip that they create a scenario where Eris will have no other choice but to use magic. The kids are abducted according to the plan, but after one of the men ruthlessly beats up Eris, Rudius discerns from the goons' conversation that it is a real abduction. Now that their lives are in real danger, Rudius finally gets Eris to cooperate with him. It becomes a real fight against goons disguised as helpers in Eris's household. They are after the little disaster who gave them a hell of a time while they worked for her. During the struggle for Eris's possession, Rudius fights bravely against the goons, just before Ghislaine arrives to eliminate them. In the end, the arrogant Eris accepts Rudius as her tutor. Episode 6. The next day, Philip reveals to Rudius that he was abducted by Eris because of how influential his family's bloodline is. Rudius also gets to meet other members of the household, such as Eris's mom, Hilda, who shows her resentment for him at first glance, and Lord Soros, Eris's grandfather, who Eris definitely picks her arrogant attitude from. Despite it all, Rudius gets Eris to act humble and seek his tutelage. After a month of teaching Eris, the only part of learning she's interested in is magic. But when it comes to reading, writing, or math, Rudius goes on a rat chase and receives a series of punches for no reason. One time, when she gets away from studying, she sleeps in a barn, and Rudius takes advantage to peep at her underwear. Eris is extremely skilled in hand-to-hand combat, so Rudius's adventure doesn't end well for him when she wakes up. With how difficult Eris has been, Rudius asks Ghislaine for help. Anything to get Eris occupied and take math lessons seriously. Over time, Rudius and Ghislaine take Eris to town in disguise, so she doesn't end up in the wrong hands again. On their stroll, they teach Eris some math and some gratitude, since she's a rude slime. They also see a flying fortress that belongs to one of the heroes who defeated the demon god, revealed to be the Perugia's fortress. Rudius vows to go up someday. Episode 7. Over time, Eris's training improves, as does her attitude towards Rudius. As time passes, the word spreads out about Eris's 10th birthday, and Hilda still despises Rudius for no reason. Meanwhile, Rudius takes up a course to learn the language of another continent. Sadly, Rudius struggles terribly with his self-inflicted predicament because the language turns out to be a difficult one. Eris isn't left out of the struggle. She wishes to learn how to dance before her birthday, but it turns out futile. The maid in charge of Eris's dance lessons, Miss Edna, seeks Rudius's help with her just like he did with Ghislaine. Rudius successfully gets her to practice and also promises to help her. However, Eris proves to be difficult even in the subtle act of dancing. Eris and Rudius go on with their respective studies, and along the way, Rudius receives help from Roxy through written letters. Just then, the long-awaited celebration arrives, and the room is filled with people who are celebrating Lord Soros's granddaughter's birthday. When the time to dance arrives, Eris's hand is taken by a boy, and as expected, she messes up so badly that she even breaks his legs. This raises background talk about how incompetent Eris is as a girl child. However, Rudius steps into the circle and takes her hand for a dance. Eris, who was once nervous, turns out to be a pretty good dancer, thanks to the mind tricks that Rudius uses. Afterward, the crowd cheers beautifully for them. One more thing, Rudius bumps into Lord Soros going on a crazy ride to Bikini Bottoms with a maid. Episode 8. It's been 2 years since Eris turned 10, and now it's time for Rudius' 10th birthday. With all of this, Eris tries to arrange a secret birthday for him, but unfortunately, Rudius is aware of the preparations and is also planning how to fake tears when it happens. When the day arrives, Rudius implements these fake tears just fine, while Lord Soros gets emotional about it and is dragged outside. Surprisingly, Hilda locks Rudius in a tight, soft, and warm embrace as she asks him to join their family by marrying Eris. Rudius is shocked to get such an offer from Hilda. However, she is also dragged out of the room. Additionally, Eris gives Rudius the lovely present of a staff, Aqua Hardia, that was made from the finest and strongest materials in the kingdom. They party hard, and afterward, a conversation between Philip and Rudius reveals that Hilda resented him because her male children were taken from her due to a succession tussle in their family line. All males in the Boreas household are grown in the head of the family's household. Since Philip is not the head, Hilda's 2 sons were taken, and her resentment of Rudius was based on the fact that he got to stay freely while her sons were taken. Shockingly, Philip offers Rudius the leadership of his home by giving Eris the night. After being an honorable man for a minute, Rudius declines the offer and retires to his room. But then again, he sees another pleasant surprise of the night when he meets Eris in her undergarments. Another major surprise is that she permits him to do something dirty with her. However, when he does, Eris folds up and runs off, saying it's not yet time. While everyone relaxes, chaos strikes the kingdom in the form of a dark gathering of mana. It comes along with Almonfi the Radiant, who seeks to destroy the source of the power, referring to Rudius. Thankfully, Ghislaine defends him from the Radiant's hands and an immense blast that destroys everything in its path. Episode 9. The blast changes everything about the script, and we see Rudius in a conversation with the man god who reincarnated him. The man god assures Rudius that he can trust the man he finds next to him when he wakes up. When that happens, Rudius just sees himself and Eris next to a Superd named Ruijerd. The man reveals that the kids fell from the sky and are now deep in the Demon Kingdom, but there is no sign of Ghislaine. As they journey back to their home with the Superd, Eris slowly warms up to Ruijerd, and they also visit Roxy's hometown, where they meet her parents. It is also revealed that Ruijerd is not helping the kids out of sympathy. It turns out that the disastrous rumors about the Superd tribe were a result of manipulation done by the Demon King, Laplace. Ruijerd's mission is to prove his tribe's innocence. Episode 10. To infiltrate the next town, Ruijerd's hair is dyed blue, so he blends in as an adventurer without causing chaos with his presence as a Superd. During one of their adventure missions, the kids get a glimpse of how ruthless Superds can be when you cross them. After slicing off the head of a cheating adventurer, it is up to Rudius to inform Ruijerd that killing is not the solution to any problem. Episode 11. Soon, it will be revealed that the blast not only affected the kids, but the whole of the non-demon realm. The blast caused a series of deaths, destruction, and missing people. The blast is revealed to have separated Rudius' family, and it's up to Paul to search for them. Also, Rudius' group strives to survive their first task as adventurers in the demon realm. Because they are signed up as F-rank adventurers, they swap jobs with a higher ranks job for more money. Unfortunately, they are the only ones who walk out of the location alive after deadly monsters kill adventurers from another guild. To top it all, the guild supervisor finds out about the little scheme done by Rudius' group when they return. Rudius has no other choice but to escape the situation by revealing Ruijerd's true hair color with his water magic. This act alone disbands the whole area, making everyone run for their lives at the sight of the Superd. After they escape the city, Rudius apologizes for his careless plans because he needed to make money fast. Ruijerd accepts his apology, knowing fully well that Rudius made the decision to protect Eris. Also, he shaves off every hair on his head and hides his jewel forehead with a wrap so he can escort the kids back to their home in peace. Episode 12. A year into the adventurer's journey, the trio ends up in a tight spot where they have to find 2,000 ore coins to buy ship space for the soup herd on the team. While the group worries about how to get such a ridiculous amount of coins, Rudius has a dream that night with the man god. He gives Rudius directions to buy food from a street vendor and give it to a needy beggar on the pathway. After doing this, all Rudius ends up with is a psychotic little girl, Kishirika, who thinks she's the emperor of the demon world. When Rudius plays along with her act, she offers to gift him one wish in exchange for helping her. Since she's unable to offer money, the world, or her childish body, she offers Rudius the demon eye of foresight instead. In no time, Rudius puts the demon eye to use in spar sessions with his party, but unfortunately, he is still no match for Ruijerd. After 1 week of not earning a dime, Rudius decides to sell his staff that was gifted by Eris on his 10th birthday. Thankfully, Ruijerd shows up to stop him, and at the same time, they bump into a man named Gallus. Episode 13. Behind the scenes, it is revealed that Rudius's master, Roxy, travels with the party. They are in search of Paul's family, who were all victims of the mass teleportation after the huge mana blast that occurred a year ago. Through their investigation of the Demon Continent, they gained intel about the famous soup herd, nicknamed Dead End, who is also traveling with a party of 3. One day, while gathering intelligence, Roxy unexpectedly runs into Eris and Ruijerd while training, but not Rudius. After seeing that Ruijerd is the real deal and not a rumor, Roxy makes her way out of the scene immediately. Meanwhile, the man Rudius and Ruijerd bumped into ends up being the man who sneaks Ruijerd on the ship without fees. The condition for sneaking Ruijerd into the smuggler's den is so he can free the goods inside, revealed to be captured beast children. Unfortunately, Rudius gets mistaken for a smuggler by members of the Beastman tribe who came to rescue the kids. When he goes back for the sacred beast, he is paralyzed, abducted, and taken to their village for punishment. Episode 14. Shortly after, Rudius finds himself stripped naked on a floating mini-island vacation. It was also revealed to be a prison. While waiting for his comrades to save him, Rudius spends the most boring time in prison. His captors not only refuse to hear his side of the story, but he also receives poor treatment as a prisoner. Soon, he gets a new human cellmate named Geese, along with the arrival of an attack from the smugglers. Rudius helps the village despite how they treat him. Through the mission, he also finds out that Gallus snuck Ruijerd into the ship to use them for his ultimate goal, to find and raid the village. After the fight, Rudius defeats Gallus but ends up injured. When he opens his eyes again, he sees a smiling Eris who is excited to see him. Meanwhile, Eris's grandfather, Lord Saurus, is blamed and executed for mishandling the effects of the mana blast. Episode 15. During the party's short stay at the Beastman village, Rudius has everyone's gratitude and they are also aware of his lust for the females. Eris gets closer to the children of the clan that were saved after their abduction and even takes up the task of teaching Minotona every swordplay Ghislaine taught her. But then again, tension rises among them when Ghislaine's name is disrespected by Minotona's father, who is revealed to be Ghislaine's older brother. It turns out Ghislaine was a troublesome coconut-headed child who couldn't accomplish anything during her stay in the village. But after hearing of her greatness and achievements from Rudius and Eris, her brother regrets leaving Ghislaine for a wandering swordsman years ago. Minotona and Tersena make peace with Eris's departure. She gets to show off Ghislaine's tutelage in a duel against Ghislaine's brother. The traveling party also gets an addition to their journey, revealed to be Geese, who is headed in the same direction as them. Episode 16. A year and a half after the mass teleportation to the Demon Continent, the party has finally made it to human territory, where Geese goes his separate way. While in the city, Rudius's main goals are to restore Ruijerd's reputation as a soup herd and stay out of trouble. Actually, he doesn't stay out of trouble because the next thing he does is go on another rescue mission. This time around, Rudius is declared an enemy to all women after using one of their underwear as a face mask to hide his identity. The fight is so unserious for Rudius, who only concentrates on the bouncing melons before his view. Just then, the leader of the team arrives, and his familiar aura is revealed to be Paul. Both of them get into a heated family reunion that ends up with swinging blows. Paul calls Rudius out on the fact that he has been playing around with Eris instead of looking for his mother. Only then is it revealed to Rudius that not only were Zenith, Lilia, and Aisha missing, but the Mana Blast affected everyone in their hometown, including Ghislaine and Sylphiette. Some of them were killed, others were made slaves, and Paul arranged a party to save the ones that could be saved. To sum it up, Norn, who is Rudius's little sister, is the only family with Paul, and she doesn't recognize him as her brother. Episode 17. It turns out that Paul also had a hard time surviving with Norn. After setting up the party, he successfully reunited all the families together except his, and this predicament turned him into a drunkard over the course of the year. Just then, Paul gets a visit from Geese, who is also a member of the party. All along, Geese knew Rudius was Paul's boy. He informs Paul about Rudius' skill for an 11-year-old boy and how harsh it must have been to survive the Demon Continent. And he also advises Paul to take it easy on Rudius, who is still a child. This reality check makes Paul realize how much of a bum he's become since his son's return home after a long time to see an alcoholic. Paul, who is eager to make things right, cleans himself up and meets with Rudius again. The two finally make things right as father and son. Also, news about their homeland becoming nothing after the Mana Blast is made known to Eris. Episode 18. Now that Rudius' task is not only to return Eris safely, he plans to find his family and meet with Roxy again. Meanwhile, it is unknown to him that Roxy is headed into the Demon Continent, looking for him. Back at the Demon Continent, Roxy reunites with an old accomplice, revealed to be the guild supervisor who had a disastrous last encounter with Dead End. She also gets to visit her hometown and parents. However, the reason she left home still stands, and it's all because she can't communicate telepathically like members of her clan. Despite the feeling of being an outcast, Roxy is reminded that her parents still love her, even with her inability. Later on, they also inform her of their meeting with her apprentice, Rudius, and his party. After this talk with her parents, Roxy finds out that Rudius is back in human territory, and she figures out that Rudius is the one traveling with the superb Dead End. Episode 19. Since the man god's last advice led Rudius into trouble, Rudius shows some level of hostility. However, what Rudius cannot deny is that following his advice led him to Paul. With this, Rudius has no choice but to follow the man god's next hint, which will lead him to his stepsister Aisha and her mother, Lilia. This lands him in the capital city of Sharon, where he also suspects Roxy to be. Following the man god's instruction to hide his identity, he meets Aisha again, who has grown to be a bright little girl. Not just that, she reveals that her mother is held captive in the castle. After a mini conversation with her, Rudius figures out he was instructed to keep his identity hidden because Aisha thinks of her brother as a pervert. Later on, Rudius is lured into the castle and into a trap set by Prince Pax, using Roxy as bait. Episode 20. Years ago, Roxy finished teaching Rudius and got a job to teach Pax, who is the 7th prince of Sharon. When Pax was unable to seduce Roxy into falling in love with him, he decided to take everyone connected to her hostage, including Lilia and Aisha, who stopped at the palace after the mass teleportation. While imprisoned, Rudius awaits his party to rescue him and also encounters Zenoba, the 3rd prince of Sharon, who is obsessed with Rudius' sculptured work of Roxy. Thanks to Zenoba, who is willing to do anything to have Rudius train him, the younger brother is subdued. In the end, all of Pax's prisoners are released, including his servants' families, whom he forcefully captured. Lilia thanks Rudius and returns his treasure chest with Roxy's underwear. Aisha also thanks her big brother for saving Lilia. It turns out she knew his identity all along. Episode 21. Over time, Eris has grown stronger, and Ruijerd now acknowledges her as a warrior. On another one of the party's journeys, they encountered 2 travelers with devastating power wrenching from their presence. The man named Orsted recognizes Eris and Ruijerd. However, Rudius holds no peace in his memory. When Rudius mistakenly reveals his connection with the man god, Orsted attacks the trio ruthlessly and finishes the fight by bursting a hole in Rudius' chest. This takes Rudius to another conversation with the man god, who reveals that he couldn't sense Orsted because of the curse placed on him. It turns out that there are several cursed children in this world. Thankfully, the masked woman who follows Orsted brings an important piece of information to him, and he casts a healing spell on Rudius. Episode 22. As Rudius recovers over time, he gets more nightmares about Orsted. Just when he wakes up, Ruijerd asks about the man god. Rudius reveals details of their conversation about the cursed children. These children harbor a curse that follows them till their deaths. He also reveals that the curse on Ruijerd's spear made the Superd clan feared, but that curse began to wear off when Ruijerd shaved his hair. Later on, the trio arrives in Rudius' hometown, which is left to nothing, as Paul's words say. Ruijerd also decides that the kids no longer need babysitting. After warm goodbyes, Ruijerd goes his own way, and the kids end up in the camp, where they reunite with Ghislaine. Eris is informed of her grandfather's execution and her parents' death after being teleported to a disputed land that ended their lives. She is also informed about her arranged marriage, which was planned to save the kingdom's survivors from the tragedy that hit them. Everyone is disheartened at the news, especially Ghislaine, who refuses to sacrifice Eris's happiness. Eris chooses to be left alone to make her decision, but then again, she finds herself on Rudius' bed that evening. Now that she's 15, which is the age for adulthood in this world, she indulges and seduces him to spend an unholy night with her. After what Rudius will describe as the most perfect dream, unfortunately, he wakes up the next morning to find Eris gone. With no word or goodbye, Rudius holds on to a note from her, saying they're not compatible. Episode 23. As time goes by, the rebuilding of Rudius' hometown becomes a priority. While all of this goes on, Rudius rots in his tent, facing the reality of being dumped. Meanwhile, the real reason Eris left was to become strong enough to be with Rudius. Ruijerd's curse is slowly lifted even as he mingles among humans. Zenoba is banished to study abroad because of Pax's scheme. Grease continues his travels. Roxy meets Kirishika on the Demon Continent, who gives details about Paul's family's whereabouts, including Zenith. Paul reunites with Lilia and Aisha. The series ends with Rudius setting out to find his mother, Zenith. That brings us to the end of this recap, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Kindly hit the thumbs up button and the bell button to subscribe to part 2 of this. See you next time.